Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Union Arena Deck Tech. Today, we're joined by Kyle from Unionversities, and we're diving into a unique powerhouse in the game, Squad Zero Purple Bleach. This deck is all about heavy synergy, powerful removal tools, and one of the strongest specials in all of Union Arena. It creates massive swings by clearing boards and drawing cards, letting you outvalue your opponent turn after turn. We'll cover the basics, the curve, the key cards, and how the deck functions, and why it's so deadly. So, let's start with the basics, shall we? How would you describe the overall identity of Squad Zero? Do you see it as a control deck, a tempo deck, or an aggro deck, or something else?
Like similar to anything purple, I don't think we've ever gotten to the point of control in this game. There isn't a true control deck because everything's kind of just mid-range, because you can either switch to an aggressive start or a kind of mid-range, get to that end game kind of thing. Like you could take a good couple hits and then you could just easily just make it your own. So they kind of just have that back and forth. You definitely have aggressive decks or combo-y decks, but I haven't really seen a control deck yet.
So, what role do you expect Squad Zero to be playing in the majority of your matchups? Are you going to be the person taking over the board, or are you going to aim to be the aggressor when you're sitting down in a random match?
So, it's a little bit of both. You're like trying to keep their board small, as again, mid-range kind of does. They're kind of making those little pokes and then just keep things off the board. It's not a full control deck, but you can definitely go like, we got enough big boys. Once we kind of get the ball rolling, we can apply pressure through our other card combinations.
Okay, so what makes Squad Zero unique compared to other purple decks in Union Arena?
So instead of focusing strictly on the normal fill your trash, remove it, it immediately wants the stuff in the remove area, and it uses that more. It kind of skips the fill the trash stage, and then basically you get to apply pressure that way.
Okay, so let's walk through the curve of the deck. So starting with the zero cost cards, what's their purpose in this deck? Are they mainly the setup energy generators, or do they serve alternative uses as well?
Like any game, strictly in just Union Arena in general, your goal is to have as few of non-triggers as possible. This deck wants to be, it's sitting at a whopping 7 right now of non-triggers, if I remember correctly, in my design, which is fantastic. 8 or less is kind of the dream, because if you can get to 4, you're in a sweet deal. My other decks, I kind of try to get to that, so it's super important. But each kind of, like in any deck, your zeros are either an energy generator or it's your future raid target, right? The zero converts to your big boys. And that's usually the main strat of most decks, is convert your, weakling, later use for better value, or use it to swing in. The only exception to this is that there are 2 zeros. You have Kanerun and Tanjiro. Both serve kind of different purposes. One is a vanilla 2K. The other is with a draw trigger. This one has just an on play, being able to look at the top of your deck, place it at the top or bottom, kind of giving you that foresight, which this deck likes to kind of know what it's doing. And then, yeah.
Early card filtering. You can never complain about that. So this deck only plays one card that is your 1-drop, a 4 of course, but I believe her purpose is just a generic raid target, correct? Does she have any other use inside of this type of deck?
Her trigger alone is beneficial. She is just another raid target, yeah, because in the grand scheme of things, ideally, if you're building a deck, you want to have for every one you want to have 2 raid targets, right? So if it's a raid 4 cost, and you're playing 4, you want to have at least close to 8 to be viable targets. So that is what her kind of goal is, but her act trigger is a great one because being able to give 3,000 and, get the restand means you get to block a little bit better in its conception.
Now, I feel like it's a little bit worth mentioning that her body size for a 1-drop is quite admirable. A 2500 1-drop can usually stave off some early 0-drops being pushed up to be aggressive by quite a lot of decks out there in the format. So, quite a good card.
Correct.
Yeah, you no downside so far to playing this. So let's move on to your 3 cost, where the deck starts picking up its momentum quite a bit. Now, I'm seeing that you have 2 different 3 cost characters, as well as the Bankais in here. Can you go over the role that each of these characters play? Because I know one's a raid target, but the other one is very unique.
So first off, Ichigo becomes 4K big booty swinger. Makes unfavorable trades very early on, but double energy generator. Because you're trying to get into that 4 curve, and as you can see, we're not playing like Kisuke Urahara or the Orihime that bounces because they are terrible ass cards, but
yes,
I hate those cards. I can detest them as much as I want. And then you have Oetsu here. This one is a great target. So when played, he gets to look at the top card of your deck, then place it at the top or bottom of your deck, giving you some little bit of filter. But this is where he kind of becomes that early aggression trade-off, like similar to Ichigo. If he's in the front line, he's going to come in and start punching like a fiend. Because you were playing Squad Zero Affinity, your Squad Zero Affinity cards need to be removed to proc your 4 costs Ichigo as soon as possible to kind of get those extra damage in. But this allows him to become a 4K body booty that's just going to be swinging in for big numbers early on, meaning unfavorable trades again. But it also has a great act trigger as well, and it's a double energy generator.
Yeah, absolutely no downside to this card. This card is going to be a staple in purple for quite some time. So when you move on past that, we start getting into the meat of the deck, the thing that really makes this deck pop off and has all the payoffs, the 4 costs. Can we go over each of the 4 costs in this deck and
hold up. We skipped something important. The Royal Palace. That is our 2 cost.
Yes, 2.
I want to. You can't play this deck without the Royal Palace. That is super important.
All right.
So play this card, set it to active. Activate main, switch it to resting. Look at the top card of your deck. If it is Squad Zero Affinity, you may reveal it, add it to your hand. Otherwise, place it at the top of your deck or into your sideline. This means that basically this, and this are the only non-targets in the Royal Palace. So as long as you see the rest of this thing's going to be a +1 as long as it's on play and constantly drawing you cards. That is super effective. And again, that is name game of any card game. The more you can draw, the better off you are. And this is probably one of the key cards that you want to see in every opening hand as best as possible. If it's not in there, it's okay, as long as you have a good curve. But if you see this and you kind of have like a 0 and 1, you're kind of in a good spot, and you're going to be in a really fantastic spot from there on, because your 0 to 1 to 2 play is ideal curve. Without Royal Palace, this deck would be a lot slower, because if you notice, one of the biggest issues of this deck is that, I'm going to give you a little hint, there's not a lot of draw triggers in this deck.
A lot of active, though.
A lot of active, which is really good, but without the draw triggers that some of the other decks kind of use, this compensates extremely a lot. Again, not a lot of decks can keep that tempo if you can't keep the resources going. And like 2 Royal Palaces on board, you can turbo your deck so quickly and just have answer response constantly.
All right. Yeah, that card is absolutely phenomenal. And with a get trigger, That is so strong. So now the meat and potatoes of the deck, the 4 cost. Can we go over the role each of these cards play and why each of them in their own unique way are powerhouses in the entire format?
So first off, this is probably the best purple card ever printed in existence. Purple Ichigo is ridiculously nuts. Nullify impact, so it prevents late game sneaky that your opponent might try to do with impact shenanigans. Early on, because you are playing a squad 0, as long as there's 2 different names in that, this thing's hitting for double damage. Means your opponent is blocking this either later games or anything like that. So that means this thing becomes, as the game goes on and you chip out every couple damage, once they start getting into that 3 zone, they're going to be blocking this because they're not going to want to take it. So you kind of just play hide and go seek with this card. You get it into your energy line, bring it, swing in, make sure you have another backup. But what's really nasty about it, once you get to 4 different unique names in your removal area, which is super important, not your trash, your removal area, this thing gains impact 1, being able to throw hands with your opponent. But again, that is just a little bit of the key here. That is very important. Next, another great option is the removal spell. Shatasumi Kamaru Shiga blah blah blah. I'm never going to pronounce this right. Yeah, I don't think there's many people that can unless they've watched the anime like 800 times. Place up to 3 squad 0 affinity cards from in your hand into your removal area, which is what you want to do. This is why Royal Palace is very important, because you want to get as many as possible, because once you start using this, you're going to be dumping your hand a bit. Choose a character with 3,000 less DP on your opponent's front line and sideline it. For each card placed from your hand, which you can kill up to 6Ks, it's not a bad trade-off. Add 1,000 DP to the range of this character that you may choose. Then for each card placed from your hand into this removal area, with the ability, draw a card. So basically, I don't need these cards at this point in the game. I want to remove this thing. Trash 2. Hey, that 5K is gone. If they magically are 6Ks for God knows what reason, you can remove a 6K. Not killing any One Punch Mans anytime soon, but at least we're going to be able to kill most 5Ks very comfortably, and being able to recycle pieces back that fuels into the Ichigo is really good. Now you have Senjamaru. This is basically right out of the anime. When played, by placing any number squad 0 affinity cards from your hand into your removal area, choose up to 1 character with 25,000 DP on your opponent's or less BP on your opponent's front line and sideline it. And for each card placed from your hand into your sideline with this ability, add 1,000 DP to it. So yeah, you can kill almost anything in the game if you can dump your hand enough. That's why Royal Palace is the bread and butter of the deck. That's why you want to be getting these squad 0 cards into your hand as soon as possible. And now you do have the color trigger Ichibe. Ichibe is really awesome because just playing him down, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, place them at the top of your deck in any order. This now guarantees that Royal Palace will trigger very comfortably. And now also when attacking, select a required energy amount. So remembering cards where you place them is super important. If you're drawing cards, make sure you remember the energy line, because that is on you. But selecting a character, a required energy amount, then reveal the top card of your deck. If the card has the same selected requirement of energy amount, you may add it to your hand. If you do, place 1 card from your hand into the removal area. If you did not add a card to your hand, place the reveal card on the top of your deck instead. And it's your color trigger.
And the purple color trigger being arguably, more than likely, the second best color trigger in the game. Such an amazing card to have on your side.
Yep.
So
and we do have one more of the purple 4 cost Ichigo. Just being that impacty boy, just the draw card. Whatever.
And then we have a 5 cost. Ooh, really stretching it on that one.
Yeah, we got double energy generators for days. Why do we care? So basically, Ichigo's here to mill 2 cards from the top of your deck, and as long as your trash has the magic number and says hi, remove the X amount to go minus DP per 500 per card. So if you want to kill a 4K, it's going to cost you 8 cards from your trash. If you want to kill a 5K, it's going to cost you 10. If you want to kill a 10K, it's going to cost a ridiculous amount, if I remember correctly. 20 cards. So yeah, about half your deck to go kill a Saitama. Good luck on that.
Oh yeah, very difficult. But the card does give you a lot of flexibility to be able to minus the BP of characters on the board, and with the other removal package you have, it just naturally slots and synergizes in very, very well. So
it does.
Looking at this deck has a lot of chip damage and a lot of good value cards for card filtering and selection. What are some important combo plays you think people need to be aware of when they're piloting this deck for the first time to be able to squeak out your wins and clear out your opponent's board?
So, again, biggest combo is your draw potential. So, again, using Ichibei to set up with Royal Palace to get your cards in hand that you want is super important. Setting up the Ichigo in the back line just early enough, and then bringing it up when you're live and being able to pressure damage constantly is super important. But outside of that, it is a lot of understanding your trash isn't going to fill up as quickly as the normal go around. Most of your stuff will self-remove from hand instead. So just keep that in mind, that your early aggression plays are usually with Oetsu or Ichigo dealing the damage early on in your turn, like turn 3 onwards. So that's where you're kind of just getting your damage and tempo. Because if you're not doing that right, you can lead into these kind of bad plays that don't seem like they do much payoff. And it's just knowing what this deck can do by being able to remove stuff, but just keep a constant flow on your deck, because you can self-destruct yourself and basically, deck yourself out with this deck, because this replaces 3 cards. This is going to draw you constantly. So again, when players have this tempo game strat, you're always going to be on the better foot, because unlike them that need like let's put in C2 from Code Geass. When that thing's played, it draws either 1 or 2 cards. This thing will draw you 1 card basically per turn at a good day. So yeah, as long as you can manipulate the top of your deck consistently enough and know when to kind of just use it, you can plus more than you'll need to, because you're not going to be expending an AP to kind of just do things, right? You don't need to AP draw with this deck as long as you have the Royal Palace up.
Wonderful. So let's start wrapping this up a little bit. Where do you think this deck sits comfortably in a meta? Do you think it is a deck that's good into the go big green style decks, or do you think it's better against more aggressive bottom of the totem pole and bottom of the curve style decks?
It kind of has a good matchup into all. It just doesn't scream like it struggles that much into things. It can play with the big boys. It's just learning to adapt your strategy to the play lines that you need to do. If big green is kind of just the thing you're worried about, you're playing in, be aggressive on them. Again, these decks have the ability to shift modes. The problem is best of 1. Yes, you don't know what your opponent's playing before they flip the card up on the table, right? Play their first turn. So you can't really pre-shape your hand into what they're playing unless you've already known that. Locals, it's very easy to kind of manipulate that, go okay, I know he's playing green Saitama, so that means I should swap my strategy to be focusing on getting a little bit of more damage early on and then apply more pressure later. So it's just even just the small this deck definitely wants to face more comfortably into big boys. Super Weenie Hut Junior kind of aggro decks that are just very quick, fast, can hurt you a little bit if you can't stabilize and kind of just prevent them after a bit, because they can easily match your numbers after a certain point. So yeah.
Okay, well, big thanks to you, Kyle, for sharing your insights on the Squad Zero Purple deck. This deck has some of the best tools in the game that I've seen, and I'm really looking forward to see how well it starts putting up numbers to people who actually pick it up and start realizing the power level of it. Where can all of the viewers find you? Shout yourself out real quick.
Yeah, you can find me on the UB tubes as Universities. At the end of the day, I do a lot more on the weekly metas of locals and stuff like that. So it's super important to get that data out, because you kind of get an understanding where, like, what people are building, how they're building their decks. I kind of do it every week. So you kind of get a good, taste a bit of the meta, right?
Absolutely. And of course, I'm ProDmJoey. You can find me down in the description below. I just record some of the matches I have, and once in a while I have funny videos that I go haha and put out as well. And thank you all very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.